Hello guys, welcome to my channel Lucid Fanfic, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. Mom, Mom, Izuku's voice echoed weakly in the quiet apartment. His small feet patted softly on the wooden floor as he stepped into the living room, clutching the hem of his All Might-themed pajama shirt. The lights were off, and the only glow came from the muted television screen, still showing highlights from a recent hero battle. But his mother, Inko Midoriya, didn't turn to look at him. She sat on the couch, stiff, her hands folded on her lap, her eyes locked on the screen as if it would answer the questions swirling in her mind. Mom, Izuku tried again, a little louder this time, his voice quivering with confusion more than fear. Izuku, I had a dream last night that I saved a lot of people. Everyone cheered for me. Even you did. You hugged me and called me your hero. Inko flinched slightly, barely, like a twitch in her shoulder, but she said nothing. Izuku stepped closer. Izuku, do you remember when we went to see the All Might exhibit last year? I said I wanted to be a hero just like him. He tried to smile. Izuku, you said I could do anything if I worked hard enough. Remember? You said I was your little champion. She inhaled deeply through her nose but still didn't speak. Izuku, Dr. Tsubasa said. He said I can't be a hero. He said I don't have a quirk. But that doesn't mean I can't try, right? He paused, voice cracking. Right, Mom? Inko finally turned her head. Her eyes were red. Not from crying, Izuku realized with a pit in his stomach, but from exhaustion, as if tears had dried up long ago. Inko, why, Izuku? She said softly, her tone more tired than angry, but it cut sharper than any scolding ever had. Inko, why did it have to be you? He froze. I prayed, she continued, voice hollow. Izuku, every day, since you were a baby, I prayed you'd be special, that you'd have something, anything, just a spark. You are always so sweet, so kind. I thought you deserved to shine. Izuku took a trembling step forward. Izuku, but I can still shine, can't I? Maybe not with a quirk, but... No, she said quickly, shaking her head. Inko, no, you don't understand, Izuku. It's not just about trying. It's not about effort anymore. You're quirkless. That means the world won't accept you. That means you'll get hurt. You'll be cast aside. She paused, biting her lower lip. Inko, I just wanted you to be normal. Safe. Not laughed at. Not pitted. Izuku, but I'm still me. He whispered. Izuku, I'm still Izuku. I still want to help people. I want to save people, even if it's just one person at a time. Inko, and what happens when they don't want you to? Inko's voice broke, a hint of desperation in it now. Inko, what happens when people look at you and say, what can he do? Do you know what people do to those who don't have a place in this society? They push them out. They forget them. They let them fall. Izuku lowered his head. Izuku, I thought you'd still believe in me. She looked away. Inko, I want to. I really do. But I don't know how to anymore. There was a long silence between them. The TV continued playing its loop, showing a pro-hero lifting rubble from a collapsed building. Izuku's voice was barely audible. Izuku, did I do something wrong? Inko's breath caught. She stood suddenly, walking past him toward the hallway. Inko, you should go to bed, Izuku. It's late. Mom, I said go to bed. She didn't look back. Her voice was firm, distant, final. Izuku stood alone in the living room, the weight of the world pressing down on his small shoulders. He glanced at the screen. The hero on the screen smiled proudly as citizens clapped and cheered. He turned away and walked slowly to his room, his footsteps heavier than they should have been for a child. Izuku, I still want to be a hero. He whispered to the dark hallway. Izuku, even if no one believes in me, even if you don't, I still want to be one. No answer came, only the soft buzz of the TV behind him. And for the first time, the silence felt like the loudest rejection of all. Years later, I was a fool. That day, when the doctor's words came out so casually, like he was talking about the whether your son's pinky toe joint shows no sign of the extra evolution. I'm sorry, but it looks like he's one of the 20% who won't develop a quirk." My mother's expression changed. Not dramatically, not with a gasp or a scream. It was subtle, a twitch in her eye, a hesitation in her voice. Like the hope she carried had quietly died, and she didn't want me to see its funeral. She never looked at me the same again. In my life, what do you expect when you're quirkless? From the moment the word quirkless was stamped onto my existence, I became less than everyone else. At first, I didn't understand. I still wore my All Might backpack proudly. I still tried to smile when kids talked about their powers, showing off little sparks, floating toys, making things glow. I clapped along, laughed when I was supposed to, even cheered them on. I didn't know the rules had changed. But then they started looking at me differently. Not with hate. No, that would have been easier to deal with. It was pity, contempt, that mix of emotions people get when they want to act nice but also feel superior. Teachers stopped calling on me when we talked about hero careers. Kids stopped inviting me to quirk training games. The desks around me always had just a bit more space, like being quirkless was contagious. And then there was Kitsuki. Deku, he called me. Useless. A name that stuck like tar. He'd be my friend once. We'd played together, watched All Might clips side by side, shouted catchphrases in unison. But the moment the truth came out, he pulled away. No more smiles. No more shared dreams. Just mocking, shoves, explosions near my face. Because to someone like him, someone powerful, I was an insult to everything he believed in. I was someone reaching for the same stars with no wings. The world doesn't hate quirkless people. Not openly. That would be too honest. No, it just forgets them. It pushes them to the background, gives them side jobs, makes sure they know their place. Heroes are for those with power. Hope is for those with potential. People like me, we're background noise. We're the statistics that don't make it into motivational speeches. The first time I saw that video of All Might him saving people with a smile, a whole bus full of innocents hanging by a thread, I thought, I want to be just like him. He stood there, the embodiment of everything I believed in. He didn't just fight villains. He made people feel safe. He made them feel like tomorrow would be okay. That was the dream. So even when the world turned cold, even when my mother stopped believing, even when teachers gave up on me before I even tried, I held on. I kept notebooks. I wrote everything down. Hero behaviors, power analysis, weaknesses, and strengths. I knew I didn't have a quirk, but I thought maybe, just maybe, if I understood heroes better than anyone else, I could be useful. But I was wrong. That day in class, when the teacher talked about career paths, when he joked that everyone here wants to be a hero, when Kitsuki proudly declared he'd apply to UA and everyone clapped like it was already decided, no one looked at me. Flashback. The classroom buzzed with chatter, desks cluttered with notebooks, the sun casting sharp lines through the windows. Mr. Yamada stood at the front, casually tapping through the slides. His voice, though enthusiastic, was mostly ignored until one sentence silenced the room. "Mr. You're all third years now, so it's time to start thinking seriously about your future. Most of you wrote down traditional careers, but one of you is aiming for UA High." The class erupted. Laughter, scoffs, a few genuine chuckles. Mr. Yamada tried to keep the mood light, but someone had already seen the name on the form. UA? Seriously? Who's dumb enough to think they can get in there without a quirk? They all turned. Dozens of eyes landed on Izuku Midoriya. He froze. His fingers twitched against the desk, and his notebook, once clenched with pride, felt like it weighed 1,000 tons. The green ink he'd used to draw out battle scenarios and analyze hero tactics seemed childish now. Useless. Bakugo's chair scraped back loudly as he stood. "Bakugo, don't lump me in with that nerd," he said with venom. "Bakugo, you think someone quirkless can be a hero?" The room grew quiet again, but not out of respect. They were waiting. Hungry. Bakugo didn't disappoint. "Bakugo, you're worse than a joke. You're a delusion. Do you write fan letters with your tears, too?" He knew about Izuku's depression, his issues with his mother, and how messed up his life is. But what did he do with it? Used it to mock Izuku even more. Izuku didn't respond. His lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. He wanted to say something. anything. But nothing would matter. The words wouldn't rise. Just a. Later, when class ended, Izuku packed his things slower than usual. He waited until the room had mostly emptied out. But Bakugo was still there, leaning by the windowsill, arms crossed, his expression unreadable at first. Then he walked over, face close. No laughter now, just coldness. Bakugo, you're not just a loser, Deku. You a parasite. You cling to a dream that was never used to have. If you really want to be a hero. He looked out the window, tone flat. Bakugo, do the world a favor. Try jumping off the roof. Maybe in your next life, you'll be born with a quirk. Izuku couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it screamed. The throb in his chest drowned everything else. He couldn't cry, couldn't even flinch, just stood there, face blank, as Bakugo walked away without looking back. And when the last echo of footsteps faded, Izuku sat down in the now empty room, the corner of his hero analysis notebook clenched tight in his trembling fist. The words UA application form stayed at him from the page like a cruel joke. For the first time, he truly wondered if maybe Bakugo was right. Flashback over. That was the moment it truly hit me. It wasn't just about not having power. It was about the world deciding that. Because of that, I didn't have worth. I walked home alone that day. Katsuki and his friends had already left, still mocking me behind my back, probably waiting to rough me up again. My notebooks were heavy in my bag, filled with notes I once thought might matter. But they didn't. Not anymore. Because all men aren't born equal. That was the harsh truth I learned too early. Some are born with power, some with influence, some with nothing at all. And while we're all told to chase our dreams, only a few are given the tools to reach them. The rest of us, we're left to watch, to wish, to wonder why we were born broken. But even then, even with all of that pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't shake, I still wanted to be a hero. Not because I thought I could win, but because I believed someone needed to try. Time skip. Inko, what is this? My mother spoke. I remember the words because they didn't feel like hairs. They came out of her mouth, sure, but they didn't carry any of the warmth a parent's voice should have. They were cold, sharp, like glass breaking beneath bare feet. I had just gotten home, the smell of dust and old clothes still clinging to me from my part-time job at that tiny thrift store down the road. The owner was kind enough, but he made it clear, no hero nonsense, kid. Just stack the boxes and don't break anything. It was the only place that would hire someone like me, quirkless, 16, and desperate. The house was dark when I stepped in. It always was. She kept the curtains drawn, said the sun gave her migraines. The lights barely worked half the time, and the smell of instant noodles had become a permanent fixture in the air. I took off my shoes and headed toward my room like I always did. Quiet. Invisible. That's how I moved around the house now. Years of practice. But she was waiting. She stood outside my door, and in her hands, she held it. My UA registration slip. Crumpled now. Wrinkled like it had been clutched tightly. Like she wanted to crush it but hadn't quite found the strength. What is this? She said again. Her voice didn't shake. That's what scared me most. It was calm. Detached. Like someone reading instructions on a bottle of cleaning detergent. I didn't answer at first. I couldn't. My heart pounded so hard it echoed in my ears. Inko, I asked you a question. Izuku. What is this? I swallowed. Izuku, it's my application to UA. Why? That was the only word she said for almost a full minute. Why? Not how. Not when. Just why. I looked at her, and for the first time in a while, I really looked. She was thinner than she used to be, her hair tied back lazily, her eyes dull like the light had gone out a long time ago. She used to smile, used to call me her little All Might. That felt like a lifetime ago. Izuku, I want to be a hero, I said. She laughed, quietly, not from amusement. The kind of laugh that's closer to a sigh, closer to disbelief. Inko, you? A hero? Haven't you grown out of that yet? I opened my mouth, but she cut me off. Inko, you're quirkless, Izuku. Quirkless. How many times do I have to say it before you understand? You think UA will accept someone like you? You think this world has a place for people like you? Wake up. This isn't a comic book. I tried to speak again, but my voice felt small. Izuku, I know I don't have a quirk, but I've studied. I've trained. I've learned so much. I studied. She scoffed. Inko, you think memorizing facts makes you a hero? You think working part-time at some junk store and playing dress-up with notebooks makes you worthy of UA? Get real, Izuku. You're a child pretending to be something you're not. I clench my fists. Izuku, had to get that job because you wouldn't help me. I had to learn how to cook because you stopped making food. I had to patch my own clothes, fix the heater when it broke, buy my own school supplies. You gave up on me the moment the doctor said I didn't have a quirk. Inko, don't you dare blame me for this. She snapped, her voice raised now, sharp and venomous. Inko, do you think it was easy for me? Watching all the other mothers brag about their kids while mine sat silent? Watching you get hurt, get laughed at, get pushed around every day? I couldn't protect you. I couldn't change anything. So I chose to step back. I chose to stop pretending. Because it hurt too much to hope. I took a step back. Her words landed like punches. Izuku, so what? You decided to stop being a mother too? I asked. She looked at me, and for a moment, something flashed in her eyes. Regret? Shame? I'll never know. It was gone too fast. Inko, you have no idea what it's like. She whispered. Inko, to watch your child chase a dream that will never come true. Izuku, and you have no idea what it's like. I said quietly. Izuku, to be that child. To wake up every day in a house that feels colder than the outside. To go to school and be reminded you're less than everyone else. To come home and not even be looked at. To work hours just to afford a notebook or a meal while your mother turns her back on you. I never asked for a quirk. I just wanted you to believe in me. She didn't answer. Silence hung between us like a wall. Heavy. Solid. Izuku, just rip it up if you want. I said, nodding toward the registration slip. Izuku, burn it. Throw it away. But I'm still going. Even if I have to crawl through the gates, I'll make it there. I'm not giving up, even if you already have. She looked down at the paper in her hands, then back at me. Inko, you'll die chasing that dream. She said flatly. Izuku, then I'll die trying. I replied. I walked past her, into my room, and shut the door behind me. The air inside felt thicker than before. I sat down at my desk, opened my notebook, and stayed at the blank page. My hands shook. My eyes burned. But I didn't cry. I was past that. I was just heading home from school. Another day, another reminder. Same jizz, same whispers, same notebook thrown out the window. The teacher had praised Bakugo again, big surprise. Top of the class, strongest quirk, future #1. Me? I was the footnote, if that. Just the weird quirkless kid scribbling in his hero fanboy diary. They didn't even call me by name anymore. Just laughed when I picked my book up off the floor and muttered thanks to nobody. The sun was still out, but it felt dim. It always did when I walked alone like this, head down, hands in my pockets. The city buzzed with life, heroes swooping through the sky, sirens in the distance, crowds cheering somewhere far off. It was like a world I could see but never touch. A glass barrier I couldn't break no matter how hard I pounded on it. I had just passed under the overpass when I heard the splash. At first, I thought it was a busted pipe. But then the smell hit me, rotten sewage and something alive. Then I saw it. A mass of slime, thick and churning, bubbling like it had a heartbeat. Before I could react, it lunged. It had eyes, teeth, a face, grinning like it had already won. Thanks for the body, kid. It snarled, voice gurgling through its ooze. I didn't even scream. My body froze. It wrapped around me, tight, suffocating. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I thought no. I knew I was going to die right there. No quirk, no strength, no chance. Then, boom, wind pressure slammed into everything around us. The slime burst apart like it had been hit by a truck made of air. I collapsed to my knees, gasping, coughing, slime dripping from my uniform. Fear not, for I am here, came the voice. I looked up. It was him. All Might, the symbol of peace. The man who saved the world more times than I could count. The reason I still had dreams in the first place. And he was smiling. Right at me. He scooped the villain into bottles, laughed, patted my shoulder, and just like that, everything felt okay again. He was about to leap off when I stammered. Izuku, wait, please. I grabbed his leg just as he jumped. The wind tore past my face. We landed on a rooftop, and I collapsed again, still wheezing. He looked at me, confused but not angry. I have so many questions. I gasped out. He held up a hand, his eyes scanning me carefully. Make it quick, young man. Time is not on my side today. I hesitated. My mouth went dry, but I had to say it. Izuku, can someone like me be a hero too? He blinked. All Might, what do you mean? Izuku, I mean I don't have a quirk, but I want to be like you. I want to save people with a smile. I want to be the kind of hero that makes people feel safe just by showing up. I know I'm not strong or fast or special, but if I train hard enough, if I work harder than anyone else, could I still be a hero? For a second, he didn't answer. He just looked at me. His face was unreadable. Then he sighed and turned away. All Might, I'm sorry, kid. He said quietly. All Might, being a hero, it's not just about desire. Without a quirk, you're putting your life and others at risk. You need power. Reality is cruel. Some dreams just aren't meant to come true. I stood there, frozen. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But all I could do was stare at the man I had idolized my entire life as he walked away. And just like that, the last thread holding my dream together snapped. Time skip. I was currently standing on top of a tall building in an old industrial area near Mustafa. It was the kind of place most people didn't bother visiting anymore. The wind carried the scent of rust and oil, and the air was heavy with silence, except for the occasional distant train horn or the soft humming of electrical wires. This building, this forgotten rooftop, it felt like the edge of the world. I had quit my job at that thrift store. It didn't matter anymore. None of it did. That place was just another reminder of where I belonged in this world at the bottom. Stocking shelves filled with garbage nobody wanted. Being spoken to like I was less than nothing. Getting paid just enough to eat and go home to a place that didn't feel like home. A place where the person who raised me couldn't even look me in the eye. She was right. My mom. She always said I was wasting my time. That dreaming of becoming a hero would only lead to disappointment. I didn't want to believe her. Not at first. I told myself she was just scared, just worried for me. But when I came home that day with the UA registration slip and she looked at me like I had gone insane, I finally started to understand. All Might said it too. The man I looked up to my entire life. The one I idolized. The one who saved people with a smile, no matter what. He told me to stop dreaming. That a quirkless boy couldn't be a hero. He looked me in the eyes and said it. No hesitation. No comfort. Just the truth. Cold. Plain. Final. So, she was right. My mom was right. Bakugo was right. Society was right. Being quirkless wasn't just some minor inconvenience. It wasn't a hurdle. It was a full stop. A dead end. A label that marked me as useless. Powerless. Hopeless. Being quirkless is just another word for being nothing. Why was I such an idiot for not seeing it sooner? Why did I keep holding on to hope? Why did I let myself believe that effort mattered more than power? That I could be the exception in a world that was built to leave people like me behind? Why did I have to be so delusional? Even All Might, even he couldn't pretend for my sake. Even he had to knock some sense into me. And the worst part, I thanked him for it. I actually smiled through the tears and said thank you like a fool. Because a part of me was still clinging to whatever little validation I could get from him. Even if it was just a pat on the head and a few crushing words. I was truly an idiot. So maybe Bakugo was right. Maybe I should just follow his advice. He said it all the time, didn't he? If I wanted to be a hero so badly, maybe I should just jump off a roof and hope I got a quirk in my next life. He laughed when he said it. Everyone laughed. And I laughed too. I always laughed. Like it was just a joke. Like it didn't eat away at me every time. But it's not a joke now. I stood at the edge, eyes looking down at the broken concrete below. I wondered how long it would take. If it would hurt. If anyone would care. Maybe I'd be a passing headline. Maybe no one would even find me. Maybe they just assume I was a quirkless loser who couldn't handle it anymore and moved on with their lives. I closed my eyes. I let the wind brush against my face. It was cold, a little sharp. I imagined it pulling me forward, as if the world itself was trying to say, "It's time." I took a step forward, and then nothing. Not falling, not flying, just floating. I opened my eyes. I was hovering, just a few inches off the ground. What the hell? I blinked, looked down. My feet weren't touching anything. There was no ledge beneath me, no trick of the light. I was suspended in the air, like the wind had caught me and refused to let me go. What the hell? My arms trembled. My breath caught in my throat. I tried to move, and my body responded. Slowly, gently, I drifted back, then forward again. I was in control. Somehow, I was doing this. My body, it felt lighter than air but grounded at the same time. Like something inside me had finally awakened. Tears spilled from my eyes. I had a quirk. I actually had a quirk. I fell to my knees as soon as I landed back on the rooftop. My hands trembled against the gravel and steel. I laughed, choked, cried, all at once. All this time, I wasn't broken. I wasn't useless. I wasn't nothing. Something was inside me. Something real. Something mine. Izuku, I have a quirk. I whispered. Then louder. Izuku, I have a quirk. The world didn't stop. The sky didn't crack open. No cheering crowd or hero anthem played. But something had changed. Inside me. And for the first time in years, maybe ever, I felt alive. I sat down, knees still trembling a little from the rush of what just happened. My thoughts were all over the place, like my brain couldn't keep up with everything I was feeling. So all it took was a near-death experience. That's what it took to force my body to activate whatever this was. All this time, nothing. Years of ridicule, abuse, silence, and despair. But now, after finally giving up, after standing on the edge of nothingness, my body decided to wake up. I closed my eyes and tried to remember the feeling. That moment when I stepped forward. That sensation of something inside me snapping open like a switch being flipped, like a dam breaking and flooding my entire system. I stood up and jumped, nothing crazy, just a hop, and again, I floated. Not as high this time, but still off the ground, weightless, like gravity had stopped caring about me. I took a deep breath and steadied myself, the air sharp and cool in my lungs. To think, the quirk I awakened was kind of similar to hers. That woman who calls herself my mother. She can float things, right? But this felt different. More intense. More dangerous. At least it's better than nothing, right? Maybe I could actually do something with this. Maybe I could. Wait, what if there was more to it? That thought, it wouldn't let go. What if this floating was just the beginning? What if I hadn't even scratched the surface? I didn't know what I was doing. Not really. I was just following instincts, raw and untrained. But still, something in me felt different. No, not just different, strange. Like every single cell in my body had been stowed awake after a lifetime of slumber. Like this energy, no, this force had been buried inside me all along, and now it was bursting through every inch of me. I couldn't contain it. I couldn't explain it. But I could feel it. I felt like I could take on the whole world. Across the rooftop, I saw a rusted metal beam, thick and long, something that looked like it had fallen during some old construction work and never got picked up. I walked over, heart pounding, muscles buzzing, and I grabbed it with both hands. It felt light. Not just lighter than it should be, light like a toy. Like it was made of hollow plastic instead of steel. My grip tightened, almost on instinct, and the metal groaned. Then, it bent. I blinked. Bent it. Not with effort. Not with strain. I just bent it. Like I had always been able to. Like it was nothing. What's going on? Float. And now super strength. Izuku. What's happening to me? My knees buckled. I collapsed. It hit me like a truck. Pain, sharp, deep, overwhelming pain ripped through my head like knives digging into my brain. I screamed, clutching my skull, eyes wide, heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to escape my chest. I could hear everything. A baby crying somewhere blocks away. A microwave beeping in someone's apartment. Footsteps. Breathing. A car engine struggling to start. Muffled conversations from inside buildings I couldn't even see. I could see everything. My vision flickered uncontrollably, like someone kept flipping through filters. First, everything turned red and blue. The outlines of heat radiating off every surface, off every living being. Then, it shifted again. I saw through things. Through walls. Through beams and bricks and glass and people. Layers peeled away like they weren't even there. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. I screamed again, voice hoarse, vision going white from the overload. The wind rushed around me, and I couldn't tell if I was shaking or if the whole world was. My heartbeat was like thunder in my ears. My lungs struggled to keep up. My fingers dug into the gravel of the rooftop, gripping it like it was the only real thing left. Izuku. Make it stop. Please, make it stop. I didn't understand any of it. I didn't even know what to call this. Was this a quirk? Was this a combination of powers? Float, strength, enhanced senses. And not just enhanced, these were beyond anything a normal person should feel. This was too much. It was like my body had gone from 0 to 100 in seconds. Years of nothing. And now I was being force-fed the abilities of multiple people all at once. Tears spilled again. Unrelenting, but not from sadness this time. From fear. From awe. From confusion. From pain. I had a quirk. But what the hell was it? And why did it feel like it was killing me and saving me at the same time? I sat on the rooftop of an abandoned warehouse, a cracked notebook open on my lap, the pages half filled with messy notes, diagrams, and ideas that barely made sense to me at first glance. 3 weeks. It had been 3 weeks since that night, since I hovered over the edge and everything changed. Since I first thought I was going to die, and instead woke up to a new truth. My quirk, I said aloud to myself, letting the words settle in the air like they were still foreign. Solar core. It sounded ridiculous at first, like something out of an old comic. But every test, every experiment, every painful trial and error over these weeks kept pointing back to the same conclusion. My body, it wasn't just some random anomaly. It wasn't a glitch or mistake. It was something purposeful, something reactive, like it had been waiting for the right spark to come alive. I stood and faced the rising sun, letting its warmth wash over me. As the light touched my skin, I could feel it. A hum, a low vibration just beneath the surface, like every cell in my body was taking a deep breath. It was like my pores opened, not just to sweat or breathe, but to drink in the sun. My arms tingled, my spine straightened. The fatigue I'd felt from training the night before slowly faded away, as if I had just woken from the best sleep of my life. Every time the sun touches me, it's like my cells go into overdrive, like they're eating the light and breaking it down, not just for energy, but for fuel, pure power. Like I've got solar panels under my skin, absorbing and storing sunlight into my body's core. I clenched my fist and jumped off the edge, landing a few stories down with a loud thud that cracked the concrete. Not even a sting. I stood up straight and rolled my shoulders. Super strength? Check. Speed? Definitely getting there. I took off in a blur across the rooftop, skidding to a stop and accidentally crashing into a rusted pipe. It bent like paper, and I winced, still working on the brakes. My hearing had improved too. I could hear a man cursing at his coffee machine 3 blocks away, a kid bouncing a ball down an alley, a dog barking in frustration at a squirrel just out of reach. Every sound layered on top of each other like an orchestra of chaos. But with practice, I'd started to filter them out. My brain was learning to separate noise from signal, to focus in ways it never could before. I looked up and blinked. My eyes zoomed in automatically on a hawk gliding high above, the details of its feathers crystal clear, the muscles in its wings flexing with each motion. A few seconds later, the lenses in my eyes shifted. I could see the warm trail it left behind in the infrared heat. Maybe, then X-ray, then normal. My vision still jumped on its own sometimes, but I was starting to control it, inch by inch. In flight, I sighed, glancing at the dented metal water tank on the far end of the rooftop. Thought that one still sucks. It was less like flying and more like being launched from a slingshot I couldn't control. I would will myself up, shoot into the air like a cannonball, and then smash through whatever unfortunate object stood in my path. Last week, I crashed into a billboard and nearly fell into the street below. 2 days ago, I broke through a 5th-story wall and scared a bunch of pigeons half to death. All right, let's try again. I backed up, focused on that feeling on the energy in my chest, the light still dancing through my veins. I crouched, launched up, and hovered. For a second, maybe 2. Then I wobbled like a drunk bee and rocketed forward. Oh no, 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 no. I smashed through an old rusted pipe, bounced off a broken ventilation shaft, and finally landed in a pile of crates with a loud crash. Wood splinters flew everywhere. I coughed, rubbing the back of my head. Okay, still sucks, but I was smiling. I couldn't help it. I stood again, brushing off debris, and walked back to my notebook. The pages had started to fill with data. Observations. Sunlight absorbed per hour. Maximum output duration. Even a section labeled solar overload symptoms where I tracked what happened when I took in too much light and nearly blacked out from the rush of power. I'm still figuring it all out. I said to myself, writing down today's notes. But I know this. I'm not nothing. I'm not quirkless. I'm not broken. I looked at my hands that once felt powerless, useless. Now they felt like they could move mountains. And I'm going to master this. All of it. Even the flight. I closed my notebook and stood again, squinting into the sunrise. They were all wrong. Every single one of them. My mom. Bakugo. Even All Might. I inhaled deeply, letting the sun pour into me. This is just the beginning. Several hours later in Izuku's shop, I was folding the last of my clothes into a duffel bag when I heard her voice behind me. Inko, what are you doing? I didn't turn around at first. I kept packing, slowly, deliberately, not saying anything. I figured maybe she'd go away if I ignored her long enough. But she didn't. She stood there in the doorway, arms crossed, her usual scowl already forming on her face. The room was quiet for a moment, too quiet. I could feel her eyes on me, scanning me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe that's what I'd become to her. Maybe that's what I'd always been. Izuku, I'm moving out. I finally said, zipping the bag shut. Izuku, I found a place not too far from Mustafa. Small, quiet. Enough for me. She stepped into the room slowly, looking around like it was the first time she'd noticed how empty it was. Most of the shelves were bare. The posters were gone. My All Might figurines, once lined up neatly by the window, were gone too. Inko, you're just leaving? I turned to face her. She looked older than I remembered. Maybe more tired. But I wasn't going to let that change my decision. Yeah, I said. Izuku, I already paid the first 3 months. Used the money from selling all that stuff you used to complain about. She blinked at that, and for a second, it looked like she didn't know what to say. Inko, you're not even going to explain? Not even going to say why? Why? I repeated, almost laughing. Izuku, what do you want me to say? That I'm tired of being treated like a burden? That for years you barely looked at me unless it was to remind me what I didn't have? Or how I ruined your life? I'm not staying here just to be your emotional punching bag anymore. Her mouth opened like she was going to say something, but nothing came out. Izuku, you never believed in me. Not once. You said I was pathetic, weak, useless. You looked at me like I was some broken thing you were forced to live with. Do you even remember my last birthday? No, of course you don't. Because you were passed out on the couch. Her eyes narrowed. Inko, what's your tone, Izuku? Izuku, why? You never cared about my tone before. You only care now because I'm finally doing something for myself. She took a step forward, and her eyes did a quick scan over me again. I saw the confusion there, the uncertainty. I looked different, taller, sharper. My skin had color now. My eyes had light. The bones that used to show through my skin were now covered in lean, coiled muscle. Inko, you've changed, she said quietly. Inko, you don't look like you used to. Izuku, I'm not who I used to be. I replied. Izuku, I'm stronger now. Smarter. I have a plan. I'm not chasing anyone's dream anymore. Not All Might's. Not society's. Mine. Inko, you're not even going to tell me how. Izuku, it doesn't matter. I said, Izuku, what matters is that I don't need to live here and keep pretending that I'm okay with how things are. She looked at me hard, then over at the empty shelves, the packed bags, the faded shadow of a poster that used to hang above my bed. Inko, so that's it? You're just leaving? Just like that. I nodded. Izuku, I have to. I stayed here too long already. I stayed hoping things would get better. But they won't. You won't. And I can't waste any more time. She sat down slowly on the edge of the bed. The same bed I'd cried in for years. The same mattress that sagged from nights I stayed awake wondering why I wasn't enough. I saw something flicker across her face. But I didn't stop to comfort her. Not this time. Izuku, I'm not going to be a hero the way people expect. I said, picking up my bag. Izuku, but I'll still help people. I'll still make a difference. Just not by being what they want me to be. She didn't say anything. Izuku, I don't need your permission. I don't need your approval. I just needed to know I could survive without either. And now I know I can. She looked up then, her eyes dull but focused. Inko, so you're really done with all of it? Izuku, with pretending? Yeah, I sold everything. All my stuff. All gone. Got a good price for it too. Guess worshipping someone doesn't pay off unless you turn it into profit. She flinched at the sarcasm in my voice, but I didn't feel bad. Not anymore. Izuku, I'm going to be late. I said, slinging the duffel over my shoulder. Izuku, I've got a lot to do. Training. Figuring out how far this quirk of mine goes. I might not know everything yet, but at least I know who I am now. Huh. Eyes widened. Inko, don't have a quirk. I nodded. Izuku. Turns out I was just a late bloomer. Her voice was small when she spoke next. Inko, you could have told me. I stopped at the door and turned back. Izuku. Told you what? That I have a quirk now? That I almost committed suicide before it awakened? That everything I am now? I had to become alone? You wouldn't have listened. You never listened. Silence again. Goodbye, Mom. I walked out and didn't look back. I adjusted the strap on my duffel bag as I stepped out onto the cracked pavement, the gate creaking behind me with a kind of finality I didn't expect. The sky above was gray, the kind of gray that weighed on your shoulders, but for once, I didn't feel heavy. I felt light, not because I was happy I wasn't, but because the weight I'd carried for years, that invisible pressure of being unwanted, unnoticed, unloved, it was gone. Or maybe I had just stopped caring. I held my luggage close, the wheels thudding quietly on the uneven sidewalk as I walked away from the place I had once called home. The building loomed behind me like some faded monument to everything I used to be. Small, weak, forgotten. That was the old me. That place held the ghosts of 1,000 nights I'd spent crying into my pillow, of sitting alone in the dark with the glow of my All Might posters to remind me there was still hope. Funny how even that hope had started to rot. Why did I say goodbye? The words echoed in my head. A soft, almost reluctant whisper I hadn't meant to say. It made it sound like I cared. Like part of me still wanted something from that house. From her. From the life I was leaving behind. But I didn't. I didn't need her guilt. I didn't need her late-night apologies that never came. I didn't need her reminders of how broken I was, how much of a burden I had been. And I sure as hell didn't need her pity now that something had finally changed. 8 more months. That's all I had left until the UA entrance exam. 8 months to become someone worthy of the path I was carving. I had to get serious. Books, lots of them. Not just hero stuff, but biology, physics, engineering. If my quirk was solar-based, I needed to understand it inside and out. And I couldn't just rely on powers alone. No real hero did. I needed to train my body, my reflexes, my mind. I needed to learn how to fight. Hand-to-hand combat was non-negotiable. I couldn't be flailing around in the middle of a fight just because I got too used to flying or hitting things with raw power. Power without control was just destruction. I wasn't looking to be another explosion-loving maniac like Bakugo. I wanted precision, strategy, purpose. I'd have to look for a gym that didn't ask too many questions. One of those quiet, out-of-the-way places where the only rule was show up and shut up. Maybe I could find an old martial artist or a retired pro hero turned coach. Someone who wouldn't care that I didn't have a recommendation letter or some prestigious legacy to flaunt. Someone who saw the fire and not the family name. I glanced down at my phone. The battery was low, but the map still worked. My new apartment was about a 40-minute walk from here. Not bad. I could make a stop on the way and grab something to eat. The fridge in the new place was probably empty. I didn't want to start my first night there on an empty stomach. A small store caught my eye across the street. I started heading toward it, but then I felt something cold hit my face. Then another. I paused. Droplets. Tiny, scattered at first, then slowly building. I looked up as the first gentle waves of rain began to fall from the gray sky above. It's raining. Of course it is. I didn't even bother pulling out the cheap umbrella tucked in the side of my bag. What was the point? I stood there on the sidewalk as the rain came down. Not harsh, not loud, just steady. Persistent. It soaked into my hoodie, darkening the fabric, dripping down my arms and into my sleeves. My hair flattened, water tracing cold lines down the back of my neck. But I didn't move. I just stood there, watching the people hurry past with umbrellas, ducking under awnings, shielding themselves from the downpour like it was some curse. But I welcomed it. Maybe I needed it. Maybe the rain was the only thing that didn't expect anything from me. It didn't ask questions. It didn't judge. It just fell. And in a weird way, it felt like it was washing something off of me. All those years of self-hate. All the moments I told myself I wasn't good enough. All the nights I begged for a quirk, cried until my throat was raw, until my voice disappeared. Maybe the rain couldn't erase all that, but maybe it could dull the edges. I took a slow breath and let my eyelids flutter shut. I imagined the solar energy in my cells, flickering like tiny suns just under the surface. They were still there, still glowing, even without the light. I could feel it in my bones, in my muscles, in the way my body didn't shiver, even though the rain was cold. I was different now. I stepped into the store, water dripping onto the tile as the bell above the door jingled softly. The clerk glanced up, then went back to his magazine. He didn't ask why I looked like I just stepped out of a storm. He didn't care. Good. I like that. I picked up some instant noodles, rice, kin curry, and a few bottles of water. Nothing fancy. Just enough to get me through the next few days while I figured things out. I added some protein bars to the pile. I had to keep my energy levels up if I was going to train like my life depended on it. Because it did. I paid, tucked the groceries into my bag, and stepped back into the rain. It hadn't let up. If anything, it had gotten heavier. But I still didn't open the umbrella. I walked through the storm like it wasn't even there. I stood in front of the massive gates of UA High School, the symbol of heroism, the starting line for the greatest journey in my life. After all those months of training, isolation, sweat, and discovering the full potential of my quirk, I had finally made it. My hands rested in my pockets, calm and steady. The wind rustled through my hair. I didn't feel nervous or anxious. Not anymore. The burning desire that once used to eat away at me had transformed into something clear. Focused. I walked through the entrance, joining the crowd of applicants. Dozens of kids, all radiating potential and ambition, stood clustered across the massive courtyard. Some were stretching, others talking excitedly about their quirks or analyzing the school building with narrowed eyes. I spotted a few already sizing each other up like rivals. Then it happened. A light thud against my shoulder. Sorry about that. A voice called out. I turned and met eyes with a girl. She was about my age, with a round face, pink cheeks, and short brown hair that curled slightly at the ends. She blinked quickly, her eyes lingering on mine for a second too long before she looked away, cheeks reddening. Izuku, no worries, I said with a calm smile. Izuku, you all right? She nodded quickly. Yeah, I just got a little carried away. I was trying to stay relaxed, but I guess I ended up speeding up. Her eyes darted back up to me briefly and then looked away again. She took a small step back, fidgeting a little. Ochiko. I'm Ochiko Uraraka, by the way. She added. Ochiko, good luck today. You too? I replied, nodding once. She quickly scurried off toward the gathering crowd. I didn't miss the small glance she threw over her shoulder. Before facing forward again, I moved to the center of the courtyard with the other examinees. The huge screen above flickered to life, drawing everyone's attention. Suddenly, the booming voice of President MIC exploded from the speakers. Yeah, welcome, examinees, to the greatest high school in Japan, UA High. He struck a dramatic pose on screen, sunglasses glinting. His animated movements and loud tone jolted some of the applicants. Everybody say hey. Silence. He cleared his throat. President MIC, okay, tough crowd. Let's get started with the orientation, yeah? The screen switched to a virtual layout of the testing zones. President MIC, you've all been assigned to one of the test sites labeled A through G. You'll be taking part in a 10-minute mock battle in a replica urban setting. Each site is its own battlefield. But listen up, there's no point in bringing your friends. Each applicant fights for themselves. He winked at the camera. President MIC, you're gonna be taking out fake villains for points. All right. Here's the breakdown. There are 3 types of robots, 1-pointers, 2-pointers, and 3-pointers. They are all scattered around the field. Your job? Smash, crash, and blast your way through them to earn as many points as possible. Everyone leaned forward as images of the robots popped up on screen. But watch out. There's also a 4th type, the 0-pointer. A massive robot towered over a building in the visual simulation, crushing pavement with each step. President MIC, this bad boy, not worth any points and a total waste of your time. Considered an obstacle. Best advice. Run. Laughter erupted from the speakers. I felt someone step next to me. I glanced sideways to see a guy with glasses adjusting his frames. He looked precise, like someone who had memorized every rule in the book. The boy suddenly raised his hand. Yes, you there. Go on. President MIC called out. The boy with glasses tenure eater spoke sharply. Sir, there appears to be a misprint on the handout. It states there are 4 types of villains, but your explanation only covers 3. Would you clarify this discrepancy? President MIC leaned into the camera with a smirk. President MIC. Oh, well, thanks for pointing that out. But nay, ain't no misprint, my uptight friend. The 0-point is real. It just doesn't earn YA any points. Keep your eyes open. He frowned deeply but said nothing more. I watched him for a moment. He didn't seem like a bad guy, just a little too intense. I was used to being surrounded by people like Bakugo. This guy was nothing in comparison. I tuned back in as President MIC continued. President MIC, you all got 10 minutes in the battle zone. The more robots you take down, the more points you get. But remember, it ain't just about power. Judges will be watching for judgment, movement, decision-making, and valor. Heroes got to have brains and heart. YA dig? The screen cut off and the staff began guiding us to our respective testing zones. I walked calmly, my nerves completely under control. The sun was high, and I could already feel the warmth sinking into my skin. It fueled me gently, like an engine purring quietly inside. I didn't need to warm up. I was ready. We lined up in front of the massive gate of Test Site B. The gate was huge, looking more like the entrance to a theme park than a battlefield. The atmosphere was heavy. Everyone around me was stretching, bracing themselves, some muttering strategies under their breath. I just stood still, breathing evenly. From nearby, I could feel eyes on me again. Uraraka was a few meters away. She smiled nervously when our gazes met. I nodded once, giving her a reassuring look. She looked relieved. That same guy who was right behind me suddenly stepped up. You over there, he said firmly. You've been glaring at that girl since we lined up. That's highly disrespectful behavior, especially here at UA. You need to. Izuku. I wasn't glaring. I cut in calmly. Izuku. We bumped into each other earlier. That's all. He blinked, thrown off by my tone. Oh, I see. My apologies. Then, I misunderstood your expression. No harm done. He adjusted his glasses again and stepped back into line. Then came the countdown. The gates began to rumble, gears grinding and hissing as the doors to the testing grounds began to open. The artificial city stretched across the massive battlefield, metal towers, fake roads, and scattered alleys making up a detailed replica of an urban war zone. Students, current and future heroes, lined up along the launch area. Some of them were stretching, others checking their gear. A few even had mechanical attachments or support equipment specially designed to enhance their quirks. I hovered just above the ground in a simple black tracksuit. No armor, no gadgets, no weapons, just me. It didn't bother me. I didn't need any of that. Still, a part of me couldn't help but wonder just how much money this school had to throw around to create something this massive, just for an entrance exam. But now wasn't the time to be thinking about funding. I activated my X-ray vision and scanned the area ahead. I immediately picked up on two hulking masses moving beyond the far building's 2 0-pointers. Giant machines with no point value. Just distractions, hazards meant to terrify. I stored the info in the back of my mind. Present MIC's voice exploded once more from the speakers. Go, go, go. What are you waiting for? There's no such thing as a starting gun in real life. Without hesitation, I rose higher into the air, positioning myself above the swarm of examinees who rushed forward on foot. The wind howled past me, and in an instant, boom, I shattered the sound barrier, a thunderclap echoing across the battlefield as I launched myself forward like a missile. My body cut through the air, pressure waves trailing behind me. I zeroed in on a cluster of 2-pointers charging out of a side street, their mechanical claws clanking against the pavement. I crashed straight through the first one, my fist demolishing its core in an instant. Its metal body crumpled like paper. I didn't slow down. I swerved mid-flight and slammed my foot into the second one, tearing it into scrap. Pieces flew everywhere. Another spun toward me with spinning saw blades out. I spiraled upward, let it lunge, then dropped like a meteor and slammed both fists into it from above. The machine exploded into a cloud of parts. In the distance, I spotted Uraraka. She was using her quirk to make chunks of debris float. She released them with a clap, sending them plummeting down onto several 1-pointers with perfect timing. She moved nimbly, taking cover between alleyways and using her environment like a veteran. I kept going, blurring around the city as I cleared path after path. 1-pointers, 2-pointers, 3-pointers, none of them stood a chance. I didn't just destroy them. I flew through them. Sometimes I didn't even have to strike. The shockwave of my passage was enough to crush them or send them toppling into buildings. I kept count in my head, analyzing every successful takedown, scanning the scoreboard system through my supervision. 2 1-pointers, another 3-pointer, 4 2-pointers in that block. By the time I finished circling the west sector of the arena, I had already accumulated over 120 points. And that was just from direct robot eliminations. Wow, I actually thought it would be difficult, I said with a quiet sigh, still floating mid-air. I hovered casually, breathing evenly. Then my ears twitched. A grinding roar in the distance. A crash of debris. The screech of twisting metal. Someone was in trouble. With a flash, I was gone. I reappeared above a side street just in time to see a massive 3-pointer collapsing forward, smoke trailing from its ruined core. Beneath it, a girl was frozen in fear. She had green hair, wide black eyes, and a long frog-like tongue sticking out in panic, clearly a frog-type quirk user. Her body was built for agility, but she wasn't fast enough to move from underneath the descending wreckage. I shot downward and caught the robot's remains with one hand before it could touch her. Izuku, are you okay? I asked, looking down at her. She stared at me with a shocked expression. Isn't that too heavy? She asked. Nope, I replied casually. I lifted the entire hulk of the 3-pointer with one arm and flung it sideways like it was weightless. It crashed harmlessly into a nearby wall. I smiled at her and said, sorry, got to go. And just like that, I was gone again, vanishing into the sky. With a sweep of my vision, I caught sight of the engine-legged student from earlier, Ida, blasting through alleyways, navigating with precision, taking out targets with focus kicks. He was efficient and skilled. Not bad. But then everything changed. The ground shook. A massive shadow loomed over the battlefield. Screams erupted. The 0-pointer entered the arena. It was a mountain of metal, dozens of meters tall. Its footsteps made the entire battlefield tremble. Its single glowing eye scanned the area, targeting nothing but intimidating everything. I turned toward it slowly. Most of the students fled in terror. Ida boosted himself away. Support gear users scattered. Even the bravest examinees knew to avoid it. No points. No value. Just risk. That's when I saw her. Uraraka was trapped beneath a pile of rubble. Her leg was pinned, her hand reaching outward. The 0-pointer's foot was lifting. It was coming down right on her. Without a second thought, I moved. In the span of a blink, I appeared between her and the massive foot. Everyone watching thought the same thing. Too late. But I didn't dodge. I caught it. The 0-pointer's colossal foot descended and stopped, held in place by a single pair of arms. A shockwave blasted outward from the point of contact. Dust exploded in all directions. Cracks formed beneath my feet. The robot's titanic leg trembled. I stood firm, unmoving. My fingers dug into the metal. My head tilted upward, eyes locked on the face of the machine. "You're done," I said. I clenched my fist, and then I punched. The air itself seemed to rip apart as my fist collided with the robot's foot. The force rippled through the entire structure. A thunderclap echoed across the battlefield. The robot didn't just fall. It exploded. The entire 0-pointer detonated from within, its frame rupturing outward in a devastating shockwave. Its massive torso launched backward, twisting mid-air before crashing down outside the arena in a crumpled heap of destroyed steel. Nothing remained of its original structure. Not even a hand. It was annihilated. Silence. Everyone stared. Students, judges, pro-heroes, staff. Floating above the rubble, I held Uraraka gently in my arms. "Izuku, you're safe now," I said softly, lowering her carefully to the ground. She stared at me, cheeks red, eyes wide with disbelief. Thank you," she managed to whisper. I smiled once. Then, just like before, I was gone. Inside the observation room of UA High School, the air was thick with tension, anticipation, and rising disbelief. Monitors lined the walls, each one displaying different sectors of the massive testing arena. Teachers and staff members stood or sat, eyes glued to the screens as the practical exam played out in real time. Principal Nezu, perched comfortably in his chair with a steaming teacup in paw, observed the chaos below with calm curiosity. President MIC leaned forward, voice unusually quiet. "President MIC, man, they're going hard today. That one kid's practically kicking metal teeth in." Midnight twirled her pen with a lazy smile. "Midnight, some of them are promising. That girl with the gravity quirk, clean execution. Smart, too. Oh, and that Ida boy from the engine family, his precise. Efficient. Probably top 3 material." Aizawa stood silently behind them, arms crossed, scanning the various feeds with narrowed eyes. He didn't speak much during these evaluations. He preferred to observe. Then, suddenly, one of the monitors lit up with motion so fast it almost glitched. "Snipe, what the hell is that?" Snipe muttered, lowering his coffee slowly. "Snipe, was that a blur?" All eyes snapped to the monitor showing Sector C. The camera feed struggled to keep up. Someone was zipping through the city landscape at hypersonic speeds. Robots were exploding in every direction. 2-pointers, 3-pointers, gone, torn apart. Not from fancy tools or coordinated teamwork, just raw, overwhelming power. The blur halted midair, and the camera focused for a brief moment. A student in nothing but a simple black track suit hovered in place, arms folded, face calm. "Cementos, is he flying?" Cementos asked, stepping forward slightly. "Cementos, is that a support item?" "No," Power Loader replied, eyes squinting. "Power Loader is not wearing anything. No propulsion tech, no equipment, nothing. That's just him." "Midnight, wait, zoom in. Enhance that feed," Midnight said. The feed cleared for a second. There he was, a student with green hair, floating gently in mid-air as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Below him were piles of destroyed robots. Scrap metal and fire. All Might, standing off to the side in his thin, gaunt form, stared at the monitor in stunned silence. His mouth was slightly open, lips parted as if trying to form words that wouldn't come. Then he said, "That the boy." Nezu tilted his head. "Boy, All Might, the one who approached me once. He asked me." All Might trailed off, eyes still locked on the screen. "All Might. He asked me if a quirkless person could become a hero. I told him no. I told him to dream of something else." No one said anything for a moment. Aizawa's voice broke the silence. "What's his name?" He walked over to a nearby terminal, pulled up a file, and tapped the touchpad. A student profile appeared. Aizawa read it aloud. Midoriya Izuku. Age 15. Middle school. Aldera Junior High. Academic scores lower than average. Physical scores abysmal. Medical record shows repeated visits due to injuries sustained in what appear to be accidents but obviously bullying. Formerly labeled Quirkless until recently. Quirk registered as Solar Core Passive Solar Energy Absorption. That's it. There was silence. "That's it?" Power Loader said. Power Loader. No listed secondary effect. No description of what the energy does. None, Aizawa replied, frowning. "Aizawa, it just says passive solar absorption. That's not a quirk. That's a battery with no output." "Well," Midnight said, pointing at the screen. "Midnight, it sure as hell has output now. Look." Present MIC pointed, voice growing louder with excitement. "Present MIC. He just flew into that alley. Look at the count. He's at over 130 points. That's just from combat." A second later, the room shook slightly as the camera feed zoomed in on the zero-pointer stomping through Sector D. Students ran screaming in every direction. One lingered behind Uraraka, pinned under rubble. And there, in the middle of it all, came Midoriya again. He didn't hesitate. He didn't slow down. He caught the zero-pointer's foot, and then he punched it. The explosion that followed rocked every monitor in the room. The sound vibrated through the building, even through the soundproof walls. The zero-pointer, the gigantic machine meant only to intimidate, was destroyed, obliterated in a single hit. There was nothing left but a crater. The room fell dead silent. No one moved. No one blinked. All Might swallowed hard, still staring. Cementos, that strength, that speed, the flight. That's not just solar absorption. That's not a weak late bloomer quirk. Cementos muttered. Midnight, why he hiding it? Midnight whispered. Midnight, why would someone with that kind of power pretend to be quirkless? Aizawa, maybe he didn't know. Aizawa said. Aizawa, maybe it really was dormant. Something triggered it recently. Nezu finally put his teacup down. Nezu, I want a full evaluation. Blood test, quirk analysis, everything. He said calmly. Nezu, if what we saw was real, and it certainly appears to be, this child has the potential to be more than a hero. He could be a cornerstone. Power Loader shook his head. Power Loader, forget top 10. His top 1. Already. All Might took a deep breath. All Might, I told him he couldn't become a hero. I told him to give up. But that boy, he didn't listen. Aizawa stared at the screen where Midoriya floated above the rubble, gently placing Uraraka down. His face was calm, focused. Aizawa, because that boy was never going to ask for permission. He said, Aizawa, he was always going to become a hero. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.